morning. This is the regularly scheduled meeting, Board of Fire Commissioners. The date, what's the date?
It is July 2nd.
July 2nd, and it's about 9 o'clock in the morning.
Let the record reflect Commissioners Ibada, Glacier, Hada, Nimford, Woods Gray are present, and we have a quorum. Madam President.
Please join me in a moment of silence in honor of past and present members of the Los Angeles Fire Department who devoted their lives to the protection of our community. Thank you.
So we begin, as always, with Commissioner comments. Any Commissioner comments? No? We can move on, too.
Yeah, I guess the only thing I want to comment on, another promotional badge ceremony that went very nicely, and it's always good to see new individuals rising up in the ranks in the department.
Agreed. Yes, it was pretty fantastic, and seeing the diverse members that were promoting was also really inspiring. And I do want to give a big shout out to our newest battalion chief, who's sitting in the back, Chief Warfel. Congratulations, job well done. Thank you.
Congratulations to all of our promotees. A couple weeks ago, I led a workshop around resumes for formerly incarcerated men who are in a county training facility. They were all inmate firefighters, and then are pursuing a career in the fire service. And there's been some changes with the state and the Governor Brown to create a pathway for them to serve on hand crews. And so I went out and did a resume workshop with them to help them work on their resumes, prepare for getting hired. And I was joined by Captains Bakhtat Wu and also Chief Butler. So thank you to them for joining for the day, for a couple hours that day. It was a super meaningful opportunity to be able to help folks who are looking for a fair first chance or a second chance, and to pursue a career in service. We also had a number of California Conservation Corps members out there, and they will all be pursuing careers with the fire service. So I appreciate the support of those members. Lastly, I was out at Ciclavia over the weekend and ran across a couple of our bike medic teams who were doing their jobs out there, helping to keep the course safe. It's fun to chat with a couple of them. Thanks.
Madam President.
Yes.
I want to just mention, our last meeting, we talked a lot about fireworks.
Yes.
And thanks to My Safe LA, they sent me the little flyer online, and I chose to post it. I posted it in my neighborhood, on my neighborhood blog. I was very surprised at the diversity of opinions about fireworks. I think that's one of our problems. I mean, from people you would not believe. I think I posted it like 2 or 3 weeks ago, and every day there's at least 5 to 10 messages of people who just discovered that it was online. From the fact that people don't want to obey the law, they like fireworks, and then they have all other kind of excuses why fireworks are okay. There are people who said thank you, and they appreciated it, and they defended supporting, following the law. But it's amazing how many people didn't have that same opinion as the people who were. So my neighborhood has a lot of work to be done on to make sure that they follow the law, but they're not very interested, many of them, in following the law. And so that to me was an eye-opener. I thought everybody wanted to have a safe neighborhood, and but it doesn't seem as if that's the case. And it's a very diverse neighborhood, economically as well as ethnically, but the opinions about fireworks are as diverse as there are people. I'm amazed. So that's maybe why we have so many problems. for the last couple of weeks. So anyway, I just wanted to comment on, there's a big job to do with fireworks.
Good observation. Anything else? No? So let's move on to announcements, meeting and events, 2A.
I'll go over my events for June 20th. It was the date of our promotional ceremony, as was mentioned previously. It's always a very positive event, a lot of happy people. We do this primarily for the loved ones of our promotees. They've never seen their loved one achieve a promotion. It used to be you would come home from a 24-hour shift with your gym bag and you're wearing your gym shorts and nobody could tell the difference. But now that we take the time to take pictures and present certificates and hear speeches, it's really a special event. And I'm always asked, when are we going to do it again? You know, so you can tell the new promotees that we're already tentatively planning for the first week of December. Our current class will graduate towards the latter end of November. So that's the timeline. The numbers, I don't know exactly. We'll have to wait till we get closer to that date. On June 26th, I attended the press conference on fireworks safety. And it was hosted this year by the LA County Fire Department. We had representatives from LAPD, LA County Sheriffs, and the Sherman Oaks Burn Center. Commissioner Woods-Gray, you're absolutely right. It's a difficult challenge. We, in the city of LA, all fireworks are illegal. There are no exceptions. We encourage people to go to a professional fireworks show. However, on the 4th of July, just look out at night and you'll see fireworks everywhere. So we're very concerned. And this year, because of the fuel load from the rains and the past history we've had for brush fires, we're very, very concerned, and we're leaning forward. On June 27th was another graduation of our Leadership Academy. I got to meet the keynote speaker, Captain Gary Lee from the U.S. Navy, a very decorated military veteran who honored us with his presence and gave an outstanding speech to our Academy graduates. One of our own, Captain Kyrie Brown, was one of the graduates, so we're very proud of him. On June 28th, I attended the press conference and meeting of the Region 1 and Region 6 areas of the state to talk about our brush season fire projections. And it's a very grim projection. We're anticipating a very busy fire season, just like we've had in the last few years, and everybody's concerned throughout the state. We're in a good position here in that our staffing's up. We're getting a new helicopter at the end of the month. Our Type 3 engines are all up and running. We have a sixth one so that in case one breaks down, we can complete a strike team. We're working on Wi-Fi, making it better all the time. So we're training with the knowledge that this could be a very difficult brush season. And that completes my report.
Thank you. Moving on to 2B, which is the verbal report by the Department on significant incidents from June 18th to July 1 of this year.
Madam President, Commissioners, Chief Terrazas,
Good morning.
Counselor. Good morning, Alfred Poyer, Chief Deputy Emergency Operations, here with a verbal report for the period June 18th through July the 1st. We had a total of 18,887 emergency dispatches for an average of 1,349 a day, pretty much on line with our average, a little bit increased. Transported 8,197 people to emergency rooms across the city during that period, average of about 585 a day. We have seen it creep up a little bit, but nothing outside the norm for us. To piggyback a little bit on what the fire chief said about the brush, over the past 2 weeks, we've seen a trend of increased grass fire and brush fire responses. The fires we've encountered have been held to the first alarm. They're relatively small, and we think that trend will continue at least through this weekend. The weather and the fuel moisture, while it's not in our favor for the entire season, and we have been leaning forward, we think that this weekend it'll be in our favor for the 4th of July. On June the 28th, at about 2:52 in the afternoon, resources from our Central Bureau responded to 3636 West Beverly Boulevard in the Koreatown area. After evacuating occupants of the building, they were identified what was a hazardous materials incident, and our firefighters isolated the substance and denied further entry into the building until LAFD hazmat team could arrive and investigate. Resources, one of our 4 fully staffed hazardous materials task forces, responded and made entry. Using their specific knowledge and expertise, along with specialized equipment that they carry, they were able to determine that the complaint resulted from common household items that were found in a storage unit. Laundry detergent and insecticide had mixed and created a toxic smell. It spilled and mixed together, and they were able to contain it. All 3 adults that were in the immediate area, not physically contaminated, were evaluated by our firefighter paramedics and all declined hospital transport and were released on scene. No other health hazard was identified for the public, and LA County Fire's Health Hazmat assisted in containing and disposing the substances. And that ends my report unless you have additional questions. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We do have one public comment on this, and that's Dr. Tom Williams from Citizens Coalition of Safe Committee, I believe. Good morning.
Good morning. Dr. Tom Williams, Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community, and commenting on the brush season. I've been an owner-occupant for 30 years next to 11 acres of open space 6 miles from this building. And it's never been cut except after the fire season. So I'm quite concerned about the fire issues, especially I know the issues with the fireworks. But here's the problem. On one side, the fire department says it's a year-round issue now. I have 11 acres of brush, grass that's over 3 foot high. I know what it does because, hey, thank you. In 1985, the LA Fire Department put fans on us at the Ross Dress for Less store when we had 100% LEL at the drilling rig. You saved our asses, big time. So I'm quite familiar with the fire. But I'd like to have the fire brush season year-round and cut it before it's summer. This is July, and it's still not cut. Why not put the cutting season at the beginning of May? Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so that's 2B. 2C is verbal report by the medical director on significant medical emergencies for the same time period.
Good morning, everyone. Dr. Mark Eckstein, Medical Director. Significant EMS incidents since our last meeting. On June 19th, approximately 8:15 in the evening, Life Force 50, Rescue 55 responded to a 58-year-old gentleman who had a collapse witnessed by his wife at home. Our telecommunicator at MFC did an outstanding job processing the call very quickly, providing life-saving compression-only CPR instructions, and the combined efforts of the Light Force and paramedics on Rescue 55 achieved return of spontaneous circulation, and the gentleman actually was waking up and breathing upon his arrival to the hospital, so it was an outstanding save. The other incident I want to mention did not have a good outcome, but is particularly notable due to some changes that we're about to embark upon. On June 22nd, Engine 66 Rescue 257 responded to a 45-year-old gentleman who collapsed while doing physical labor on a street crew. Again, due to the great efforts of our telecommunicators at MFC, call was dispatched very rapidly. They provided dispatcher-assisted CPR instructions for compression-only CPR. This gentleman had what's called refractory VFib, which means often when the individual collapses from sudden cardiac arrest, the heart fibrillates or just is in a disorganized electrical rhythm, and that's where defibrillators come into play. Unfortunately, his ventricular fibrillation was not amenable to shocks, and he was shocked multiple times and had multiple rounds of cardiac medications administered intravenously, and he could not be converted to a normal rhythm, ultimately transported to the nearest STEMI center, where sadly he was pronounced deceased. The reason this tragic incident is particularly notable that we're about to embark on a pilot program where we're going to be outfitting our EMS captains with mechanical CPR devices and transporting patients like this gentleman who I call too young to die. And these gentlemen, patients like these need to go to specialized hospitals where they can go to the cardiac cath lab with CPR in progress, which was done with a machine, and they could be put on temporary portable bypass capabilities. And the data from other cities show that the survival rates are truly remarkable. Again, I consider this gentleman who passed away too young to die, and we're about to embark in the next month or two on a study that I think will save many lives of Angelinos. Unfortunately, this person didn't have a chance, but I think we'll be able to make a tremendous difference in the city with additional equipment and applying technology to a few specialized centers around the city. That concludes my report. Thank you.
Thank you. So now we're at presentations.
Firefighter 3, David Ortiz, Public Information Officer, Los Angeles Fire Department. Good morning, everyone in attendance. The reason we are here today is to honor and recognize members of Light Force 92 and Rescue 59 who responded to a cardiac arrest. Every year in the United States, there's over 350,000 cardiac arrests. 9 out of 10 people will not survive their cardiac arrest. That's why it's important to have the chain of survival. And what is the chain of survival? Well, first, it's the recognition of the cardiac arrest, early access, and then we have early CPR, early defibrillation, and advanced cardiac life support. Dr. Eckstein talked about the advancements that we are making in trying to improve what we do as an emergency provider to increase people's chances of survival, but without doing early CPR, people's chances of survival are lessened. If we have early CPR, your chances of survival are doubled or tripled depending on various characteristics. Well, on this particular day, which was March 29th, 2019, right after 5 o'clock, there was a male, 78 years of age, who was just walking down the street in 2200 block of Bentley Avenue in West Los Angeles. He suddenly succumbed and passed out and went into cardiac arrest on the side of the road. A bystander who just happened to be going by, Mr. Itai Yona. Is he here? Hi, Mr. Yona. Why don't you stand up and join me here on the side? I wasn't sure if he was going to make it in on time. He got stuck in Los Angeles traffic this morning. Mr. Itai Yona called 911, and he began to do CPR on this person he'd never met before, just a bystander. And if I may add, most people that you do CPR on are going to be somebody that you know. 7 of 10 people you do CPR on are somebody you know in your home. So it's important to learn CPR. Mr. Itai Yona called 911, and the 911 call was answered by a 911 firefighter dispatcher, Mr. Alberto Lemus. Firefighter Lemus, would you please stand up and join us up here? Mr. Lemus began to provide instructions in a very calm and deliberate manner to Mr. Yona, and he was able to give enough instructions so that Mr. Yona can provide CPR until the first responders could arrive. Light Force 92, which was being commanded by Captain Christopher Cooper, responded. Captain Cooper, are you here? Would you please join us? Captain Cooper, apparatus operator David Gastelum, engineer Timothy Davis, firefighter Terrell Lambert, firefighter Kenneth Wickert, and we're all on working that day and responded to this emergency. And firefighter Fong, sorry I missed you. Firefighter Fong as well. And I don't want to miss anybody that couldn't be with us today. Were firefighter paramedic Marcus Jacobs and firefighter Kevin Ramirez were also part of that team. These gentlemen began to perform CPR, deliver advanced cardiac care, deliver drugs, and safely transport this patient to a emergency room. The patient's name is Elliot Williams. Mr. Williams gave us authorization to use his name and to let the people know that these gentlemen, who are representative of our firefighters and paramedics who are doing this every single day, are saving lives out there, and they're doing heroic things. Mr. Elliot Williams, would you please join us today? It's going to take him a couple of minutes. He just suffered a heart attack a couple months ago, so let's be patient with him. Please join us. Mr. Williams is joined here by his wife and friends, and we are very fortunate to have a team of firefighters who are not just proficient in firefighting, but they're also proficient in saving lives. Now I'd like to read the certificate that these members are being presented with. Certificate of Appreciation. In recognition and sincere gratitude for your heroic courage, diligent efforts, personal initiative, and expedient assistance which directly resulted in saving a man's life during a cardiac arrest on March 29, 2019 at the 2200 block of South Bentley Avenue in West Los Angeles, Incident 1196. The Los Angeles Fire Department commends you for your extraordinary life-saving efforts to a citizen of the city of Los Angeles. Presented this second day of July 2019, Ralph M. Terrazas, Fire Chief.
What a compelling story. You know, we talk about the chain of survival all the time, and here behind me, this is what it looks like. It started with the bystander notifying 911 and initiating CPR. And he calls the dispatcher, who assists with pre-arrival instructions. And then he dispatches 92s, Light Force 92 and Rescue 59. And they get on scene and they sustain our survivor. And then we deliver them to the hospital, and the nurses and the doctors do their magic, and he's here with us today. And I can't think of a better example of the chain of survival and of the hard work and effort and dedication of all our members. We're very honored and blessed to work for an organization that gets to do these kind of things. This is almost a miracle, and it happens on a semi-regular basis. So I'm very proud of the members of our department of 92s, and I'm especially happy to have our survivor here with us. And I'd like to hear a few words from him, if you don't mind.
Well, I was going to say that I was saved by a miracle, but you've already heard that, so I'll avoid that. I wrote down what I was going to say so I could be precise and, even more important, brief, because I know you have important business to do today. My gratitude to Mr. Yona and the fire department members here honored today is impossible to express in words, especially since they owed me absolutely nothing. I'm a stranger to each of them, and Mr. Yona could have easily walked past me lying unconscious on the street. Instead, he called 911 and started performing CPR. One could say that the members of the LAFD were just doing their jobs to save my life. I don't, and no one else should. They dedicated themselves to a career, saving lives and property, lives, of course, being the most important priority. They chose a career with a sacred duty for a remuneration hardly its equal, a career demanding their courage and sacrifice. Looking for words of gratitude, I began asking myself, what is the value of one individual human life? After all, there are over 7 billion humans on this planet Earth. Though I have always liked to read, the best words I have found to describe the value of human life came, believe it or not, from a Hollywood movie. Charles Chaplin, the most famous actor of the silent film era, produced, wrote, directed, and acted in, and even wrote the music for a number of so-called talkies. One of them was the film Limelight, in which Chaplin played a retired vaudeville comedian. The beginning of the scenes in the movie show a young woman trying to commit suicide by gassing herself to death in her apartment. Chaplin finds her unconscious but still alive. As soon as she recovers consciousness, she asks, "Why didn't you let me die?" Chaplin answers, "Billions of years has taken to evolve human consciousness, and you want to wipe it out. Wipe out the miracle of all existence, more important than anything in the whole universe. What can stars do? Nothing but sit in their axes. And the sun shooting fire 250,000 miles high. So what? Wasting all its resources. Can the sun think? Is it conscious? No, but you are." And as an aside, I read in the latest issue of Scientific American magazine that there are 100 billion neurons in the human brain. And there are 100 trillion connections or synapses. 100 trillion. As an older and humble member of the miracle of all existence, I thank the honored people here with all my energy. My energy hardly matches the quantity of the sun's energy, but perhaps it exceeds the quality of that energy. Thanks to you all, I am here still thinking. Thank you.
Thank you, everybody. As I was growing up, my parents always taught me never to miss an opportunity to do the right thing. I'm sure I missed a few opportunities in life of doing the right thing, but I'm glad I didn't miss this one. And especially for my son, Eitan, that sits in the audience today, I want to tell you, never miss an opportunity to do the right thing.
We're going to invite everybody to one more.
Christopher Cooper from Fire Station 92. I was honored to lead these gentlemen, commissioners, fire chief, members of the deputy staff, and all the chiefs, honored citizens. I just returned from Seattle, which is the mecca for CPR in this country, but watching Mr. Yona on the street that day was very inspiring for our crew when we arrived, and we were able to intervene on behalf of Mr. Williams. During that time, after the incident, is probably the most important time, just for the commissioners' information. That's when our district, which is normally staffed by a task force, is right now staffed by a light force. And when that light force has to transport a critical patient to another facility, either Cedars or UCLA, which is nearby, our district is basically uncovered with a fire resource, unless someone moves up. So that's the real cycle that goes on there. And we strive to get back as soon as we can so that we can provide the love and care and all the service for the citizens of Los Angeles. So, on behalf of the crew, I'm, like I said, I'm just honored to lead them. I got 365 more days, and then I'll be doing something else, leading a different kind of crew. So thank you again.
Thank you.
I think it's important that we share these inspirational stories because we don't always have a good outcome. and to listen to the words of the survivor and the CPR initiator. It's really inspirational. I like to close with one more member who's got 7 weeks left before he retires. He would like to say a few words, and I'd like to introduce firefighter paramedic Wiggert.
As Mr. Williams said earlier, most of us would just say we're doing our job, and basically that's what we're doing, caring very, very much. The one person that did make the key difference in this whole outcome was Mr. Yona, so he is definitely the one who deserves the biggest and probably the only kudos. If it wasn't for Mr. Yona, Mr. Williams probably would not be standing here today. We routinely go on cardiac arrest. Sadly, the outcome, the majority of the time, is not a positive outcome. The few times that we do have a save, which I deem as somebody who actually walks out of the hospital, many people get a return of spontaneous circulation, but until they actually walk out of the hospital, it's not a true save. Something I've always taken pride in over my career is actually following up to see if they actually walk out of the hospital, and it does happen on occasion, and it's a great reward. It's why we're here. I will just also say that in my 32 and a half years with the fire department and 35 years as a paramedic, kind of glad that I'm down here today. This is a great reward, great way to top off my career. I still very much enjoy what I do, and it'll be things like this, ceremonies like this, and rewards like this will be something that I greatly miss in the future. Thank you very much.
We're going to invite everybody to the front to take pictures.
Thank you.
Yeah, right? Very cool.
Okay. Consent agenda
Madam
items?
President, can I
Yes.
make
Yeah,
one
yeah,
comment?
sure.
What a great story, you know. And you look in the eyes of our members, it really means a lot to our people to see the fruits of their labor. So I'm glad we do this. And we'll continue to bring these great stories to commission so you can see the tremendous work that our people do. Earlier, I made comments about the graduates of Leadership Academy and overlooked one attendee who's in the front row. Mark Davis was a graduate, so congratulations, Mark.
Great. Okay, consent agenda items.
Okay, move to adopt the recommendations for items 4A through 4F.
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So our first regular agenda item is report BC 19050, report by the Department on Domestic Violence, Human Trafficking Action Plan.
President Ibarra, Commissioners, Chief Terrazas, Counselor Isela. I am Linda Sester, Battalion Chief, the Executive Officer for Administrative Operations. Before you is the first quarter of 2019 departmental bulletin for domestic violence. As identified in this report, during the first quarter of the department continued its commitment to addressing domestic violence and human trafficking through the following actions. So if you look at the bottom of the report on page 1, there's some bulleted items that I was going to discuss. So in the first quarter of 2019, to continue our initiative, we developed and distributed to all members Departmental Bulletin 1904, which is identification and treatment of known suspected victims of domestic violence. We provided 8 hours of domestic violence for dispatchers, training to 7 additional dispatchers at Metro Fire Communications. So to date, 55 of the members from MFC have received this training. We also obtained 56 additional completions of the domestic violence human trafficking training by delinquent members. Currently, 89% of the members have completed the initial domestic violence and human trafficking training. And this initial training is separate from the departmental bulletin training that went out this year. We also are continuing research into updated training to be provided to all members in the 2021 fiscal year. Additionally, the department continues to monitor its tracking methods, which are designed to capture all suspected incidents of domestic violence or human trafficking that our members respond to. Since the submission of this report, we have received 1 additional DV report and 4 human trafficking reports for a total of 7 domestic violence incidents since the beginning of the year, and a total of 6 human trafficking incidents since the beginning of the year. So if you'll notice on the report, which was completed for May, has some lower numbers. So when we put out the departmental bulletin, we did see a very slight uptick in the reporting of those incidents. As we move forward, our future goals include we are going to be updating the human trafficking departmental bulletin, which went out in 2017. Mostly we're looking at renewed content and also revising the reporting processes. We are adding domestic violence and human trafficking training as a required course for EMT and for continuing education for paramedics. So essentially what happens is EMTs and paramedics have to complete so many hours of continuing education when they get recertified. And so that's, for the most part, it's sort of a choice of types of training they can do, but we're going to make the domestic violence and human trafficking training a mandatory part of those hours that they have to receive. So it's a 2-year cycle. Every 2 years, that will be part of their training. They'll have to complete domestic violence and human trafficking training. We're going to develop specific training for the EMS captains out in the field. And the goal of this is so as we identify, sometimes what happens is members, they'll have a domestic violence incident and they'll document it maybe in their comments on the EPCR, but it's not reported through the proper channels, so it's kind of something that's missed. But we'll catch those when we do the audits. And so we're going to start training all the EMS captains in the domestic violence human trafficking. So as we identify some of these anomalies, they can actually go out, train the members, make sure the members understand the process, and that they'll continue to follow the proper processes as they move forward. We're going to also be developing, as mentioned earlier, training for updated training for all department members for 2020-2021 fiscal year. So it'll be revised training. What we want to do is have the continuous training going, but make sure that it's revised content, so it's more interesting. It's not something they're just doing the same training every year that will get kind of redundant, and also to ensure that we're following all state laws and any changes in the processes, whether it's actually a law or just treatment methods or ways to identify domestic violence or human trafficking. So essentially, this concludes my report. So if there's any questions that you have on the report.
No, it's just good to see that it's making a difference.
Oh, yes. No, I appreciate that the department, I think we just started doing human trafficking, domestic violence training a few years ago. So I commend the department for taking this on. After the first initial live training, we saw a large, well, it was, I think, 150 reports of domestic violence, and it dropped down. I just had a couple questions, and I like that I love the idea, or appreciate the idea that you're putting the EMT and continuing education, recertification, the domestic violence and human trafficking into that. Do you know how long that class is as part of the recertification of EMT? Do you know what's incorporated? And
So we haven't actually developed the criterion yet. We were looking at making it a 2-hour course. And then, so the members, for paramedics, they have to have 48 hours of CE every 2 years. And then the EMTs, I'm not sure exactly what the number of hours are that they have to have, but they have to have so many hours of classes that they take for their recertification. So we were looking at creating a 2-hour course that would be a required part of those CEs that they would have to take for that 2-year cycle.
And those are tested, I assume.
And then we would add a testing portion to that.
As far as there was something here about the bulletin that went out. It said 2,249 members have read it. Do we know what that looks like? Is there a way to do some type of a couple multiple choice questions if at the end of the bulletin, just to confirm that the information actually was read and understood? Because it's pretty dense. It's pretty,
Right. So what we did, the way we're able to track that is through Target Solutions. So as the bulletin basically is put onto Target Solutions, it's assigned to all members, and then they have an amount of time, usually like 90 days, to complete that actual training. And so that's how we track the members that actually opened the bulletin, read the bulletin. But we could for the human trafficking one, we could look at, because that's going to be coming up next. And what we could do is create an actual exam where then the members would have to actually complete the exam and then upload that back into Target Solutions, which would be another way to confirm that they actually read it, but they also understood the content, if that's what you're looking at.
This is just all new information, right? And so these are, it is human trafficking, domestic violence. Human trafficking, Los Angeles is, we have the highest rates of human trafficking in the United States, and domestic violence is, rampant. So I think that it would be really important to, because we saw from the live training, the first time around, we saw a large number of reports of suspected domestic violence and human trafficking, and there was a sharp decline. So I just want to make sure that we're actually increasing the numbers as opposed to,
Correct. So when we did the initial training, it was actually a 4-hour training, a 4-hour block, and it was actually live training where all members on the department attended that training. And so that first year we saw a really good input, if you will, regards to members responding to incidents that were suspected DV or human trafficking. And then the following year when we did training, it wasn't live training, and so we did see a decline in the number of actual reporting incidents. And so then when we did this year, when we put out the domestic violence bulletin, we saw an uptick in those reporting. So it is clear. It's clear that the training actually is promoting the responses and members, keeping it fresh in their mind and with all the things that they're thinking about, it's keeping it fresh. So when they go on incidents, they're looking for signs of potential domestic violence or human trafficking. And so, clearly there is a correlation between training and probably live training that actually stimulates more of that attention to that. So that's something that as an agency we'll be looking at in the future, doing another live training potentially in 2021 fiscal year for the live training.
The fiscal year, so it'd be next year?
So next year, correct.
Okay, for live training. I mean, yes, and MFC, I think they were great. They did 8-hour trainings, that was all members had to do it. I know that the impact was pretty great. I spoke to Captain Morphle at the time, and he said the training was fantastic. And then the chief officers had the live training, and I know that they got some great feedback from it as well.
Right, correct. Because as you saw here with the chain of survival, the dispatchers, when they even take the call, there's clues in there, things that indicate to them that it's potentially human trafficking or domestic violence.
Right. Okay. I mean, I would love to see these numbers go up. I think that the only thing that we have marking the training as the effectiveness of the training is live training. We do, I mean, the bulletin did help, but maybe some type of way to ensure that the information is digested and it's understood. Incorporating that into the next bulletin would be beneficial.
Right, and we also just do random audits of the EPCRs. We do recognize that a good number of the members are recognizing domestic violence, human trafficking. They're notifying PD. They're getting them on scene, but they're not necessarily. The documentation is where it's kind of fallen through the cracks. So we're trying to get those as well. So we believe the numbers are much higher as far as members actually engaging and following the policies and trying to make that difference. But it's just a matter of capturing that and getting them all to
EPCR. Correct.
What's that?
Just the EPCR, the drop-down button? Is that
Correct,
what you're talking
yes.
about? Yeah. Okay.
I also just think that there's other reasons why the incidents might be going down, and that's because there's a lot more awareness of it, and LAPD and other agencies also have an awareness of it and have their own task forces. So that might be a reason why that's not related to our training, why the numbers go down. I'm hoping.
Correct. That's a very good possibility. LAPD actually has, like us, they've also really engaged as far as domestic violence, and they have different, are now new and improved reporting criteria, and even with their training. There's a good possibility that traditionally they would call 911, or they would call us, actually not 911, but they would call out fire for something where now if they're recognizing the situation better, maybe they don't need fire as much. But those are things we have to explore.
Right. I mean, in the ideal world, these numbers would keep going down because
Correct.
there would
Absolutely.
be less incidents of this.
Less incidents, greater public awareness, and
Right.
So just to be clear, were you suggesting they're going down because somebody else is doing the reporting, or because there's less incidents of them happening?
No, well, just in response to what President
we don't
Ibarra was
know.
saying, that because LAPD has also improved training
And
that-
improved task forces on this.
and improved task forces that
So that could impact the reporting, but there are thousands of incidents
Yeah.
of this a year. I think
They get 44,000.
yeah. So I wouldn't be too quick to jump to the
Right.
conclusion
Oh,
that
Yeah.
we're not popping champagne bottles just yet here on this one.
Yeah.
So
We're going to keep repeating. I'm just saying that, the goal shouldn't be that we have an exponential, reporting, because then that would also signify that we have some deep problems in the city that, this problem has been here forever.
sure.
So in the last 5 or 6 years, we've had increased training and identification. So it would make sense that in the first year, you'd have, because everybody is aware of it and identifies this as human trafficking rather than something else,
Yeah.
now we're reporting. So, but it's going to, I hope that we get more reporting, but I hope we don't have like an exponential number. That would be bad.
Yeah, that sounds good. I think there's a lot of reporting left to do out there. I look forward to seeing more of the training happen out there because I do think we are running it across a lot of things out there, and the fact that they should get reported. So it's great that we're starting to see people report on stuff. I appreciate the work you're doing.
Thank you.
Yes,
Thanks.
thank you.
All right.
All right, move to adopt the recommendation for item 5A. Thanks. Yep. Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Great. So now report 5B is report by the independent assessor on the update regarding audit of recruit progress and specified drill trial classes.
Good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
I'm Sue Stengel, independent assessor. This is an update regarding the audit of recruit progress in the drill tower. When I last reported about this audit, I indicated that we were working to narrow the scope of the audit, and we had sought assistance from the city's data scientists in this regard. However, we determined that the data we received from the department was incomplete. And so we are currently working to compile a comprehensive set of data, and then we will go back to the data scientists once we have that, and we will select our sample of the audit population with which we will move forward in working on the audit. I previously reported that the audit population consisted of recruits from drill tower classes 13-1 through 17-3. We are currently considering including classes 18-1 and 18-2. Beginning with class 18-1, the department started certifying recruits as firefighter ones pursuant to the state fire marshal's requirements. As a result, the drill tower is now 22 weeks instead of 20 weeks. And because of the change in the curriculum, we had previously decided to exclude those classes from our audit population, but now we are reconsidering that decision because we thought we would just have the most up-to-date class population. So we have gone back to the data scientists and the mayor's I-team, and we are now in a dialogue with them about considering putting 18.1 and 18.2 into the full data population, audit population. But I'm certainly interested in hearing any of your thoughts about that issue. And finally, I would like to recognize and thank Battalion Chief Steve Skelly and Captain Tim Lambert in Recruit Services, and Ron Corona and Ray Chung in Management Information Systems. Their assistance truly has been invaluable to us, and we could not have done this without them. I'm happy to take any questions.
Okay. So how did you identify that the data you were getting was not complete?
So the department gave us essentially 3 data sets, and when we started comparing information within the data sets and across the data sets, they were inconsistent. So as I reported last time, the department assigned an anonymous random number to each recruit. So as you all know, we don't have the identifying information for the recruit. And I don't know exactly how that was done technically, but as a result, each data set, we would see that we had a list of recruits, and then we would compare it to the next data set and see that that list didn't match. And same thing with the third data set. And then when we went into the data, so for instance, one data set was PDFs, which included scores from tests in the drill tower and notices to improve or notices to correct. We saw that the data within a PDF file did not match. So it might have 2 or 3 different recruit identifying numbers within that data set.
Okay. Okay, so then my other question is, so these are the preliminary objectives are interesting. I mean, I just looking at them, I'm going to tell you, like, just from what I know, which is really superficial, is you're going to find a correlation between a lot of these things, like height and weight. There will be a correlation between that and how well you do in the drill tower, and a lot of these other identifiers that you have here. So what are we going to do when we find that there is a correlation, which how well you do with that? What are we going to do with that?
So I think that for me, it's just way too early to address that. I'm happy to come back and talk about some of the findings that we are seeing as we start to analyze the data population, but perhaps there will be recommendations about the drill tower that come out of that information.
Okay. All right.
You had your question. You said the firefighter certification was implemented in 18.1, 18.2?
Correct.
Certainly when you deal with a larger pool, you're going to have more data points. Could be more effective information and accurate. Do you know if that has an effect on? Have you talked with the data scientists or training to see if adding in that firefighter 1 certification has had an impact on the class and graduation and whatnot?
So we posed the question to the city's data scientist about whether or not it would have an impact on the sample, and we just started that discussion.
Okay.
I would defer to their opinion on it.
Yeah. Who are the data scientists that you're working with?
So the mayor's I-team referred us. They have data scientists on their team, and then there is an outside group of data scientists. I believe they're affiliated with ITA, but I'm not positive.
Okay. Can you find out who they're affiliated with?
Absolutely.
Thank you. And that should be part of your next report, like the specific department and the position of the people who are consulting with you on this. Any other questions?
I think adding 18.1 and 18.2 is a good idea in that we would have a more diverse group of people. We would look at a different set of demographics. And I agree with the independent assessor that I think we first have to complete the audits before we can decide where we go from there. And it seems as if, to me, you're moving in the right direction for us to try to examine if there are any correlations between any of the things that you identify at the in the training program. And that's something that we've all been, I have been concerned about, because when I go to the Fire Station 81 to the recruit training program and I see 18 hats up here and they say, oh, that's who dropped out, I want to know why. So I think you're on the right track. Thank you.
Okay. Yeah, we do. We have a public comment from Freddie Escobar of UFLEC.
Good morning, President Barra.
Good morning.
Fire Chief Terrazas, honorable commissioners, and your command staff. Freddie Escobar, and I proudly serve as president of the United Firefighters of Los Angeles City, Local 112, representing over 3,300 firefighters, paramedics, dispatchers, pilots of the LAFD. I'm here to tell you that UFLAC supports the recommendation of these audits because we believe that the training and recruitment in our drill towers should be the highest standard in the nation. UFLAC is proud of the excellent training record of the LAFD and that has earned amongst its peers. We believe that our reputation as the nation's premier fire department comes with the expectation that our members should perform and meet the highest standards, period. However, our members do not support any lowering of standards or shifting metrics that can impact our high standards and potentially put our members at risk. We thank you and look forward to continuing this vital work in cooperation with the department and this commission to ensure we stay as the premier fire department in the nation. Chief Terrazas, your entire command staff, we appreciate the support that you're having with us on this issue. Thank you very much.
Thank you. So now we can vote.
All right, move to adopt the recommendation for item 5B.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
5C is report by the independent assessor on the update of the quarterly report of audits.
So I'm presenting a quarterly report of pending audits, and you just heard about the drill tower audit. When I presented my last quarterly report to you back in April, you decided that my office would conduct 2 audits related to complaints that were closed in 2018, one that would focus mostly on statistics, and then another that would be a deeper dive into how the department is handling certain complaint investigations. And you decided that you would like to see the first report before deciding what the second report might look like. So yesterday we finished the initial draft of the first audit, and we'll now begin our discussions with the department about that. We did add 2 objectives to the audit, which are in the report that I gave you. The first was to compare the statistics from our last audit. That was of the closed cases in 2017. And the second objective that we added is a result of a past discussion that we all had related to education-based discipline and looking at people who may have reoffended since completing those courses. So that is something that we included in the audit.
Okay, so that's going to be the subset or the main one?
That's all in the main one.
Okay.
We have not decided. I wanted to come back to you and talk to you about what the subset will look like.
Okay, so should we do that after we consider that main report? It seems like we should, or do we do it now? Because we haven't read that report yet, right?
Right. I would recommend that you wait until you see the final first audit.
Okay. All right. Do you have any idea right now, after having drafted the report, like what key topics might be appropriate to do, like a deeper dive?
So, of our findings, similar to the 2017 audit, the lost equipment cases and the discourtesy cases made up the bulk of the types of complaints that the department gets, and those far outnumbered any of the other types of complaints that the department received. Also, there was a large number of complaints related to emergency medical service protocols, department policy, and supervisory misconduct. Also, again, like in 2017, the predominant adjudications were sustained non-punitive and non-disciplinary, essentially meaning that there was no misconduct found.
So now I remember that discussion that we had about that.
Right.
So I think we kind of need a report about why we have so many that are sustained and not punitive, because to me it doesn't make sense why we're spending resources adjudicating cases if in the end they're not going to be punitive, and we know that from the beginning, unless we don't know that, when we initiate the investigation. Do we know that for these kinds of cases?
We do not, because we haven't looked at them specifically. We've only looked at the numbers at this point.
If I could speak to that point, for my 3 years in PSD, we don't know until we investigate. And thankfully, most of the time, it is not sustained because it's usually a miscommunication or there's a protocol that our members have to adhere to and the patient doesn't understand that. And when we find preponderance of evidence that we did violate something, then there is commensurate discipline with that, and that's described in our disciplinary guidelines. So I know it does take a lot of time and effort to investigate these complaints, but it's necessary.
Okay. All right, so I guess we're going to save that discussion for later then.
Okay.
All right. Anything else, you guys?
Okay, move to adopt the recommendation for item 5C.
Okay.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
We've adopted the report. So now we're at public comment. And Mr. Tom Williams from the Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community.
Oh, he's still here.
Dr. Tom Williams, Citizens Coalition for a Safe Community. Brush, wildfires. We missed the LA Fire Department at the wildfire conference all day long that the county apparently sponsored. However, it's now all year round. Brush. It grows and grows and grows. We have a problem in 90032 zip code because we have large amounts of brush that aren't being cleared and re-inspected and cleared again because the code requires 3 inches and 6 feet clearance if it's over 18 feet. And we have a lot of black walnut that are over 18 feet, and they have never been trimmed up. So we're going to do a survey. There will be one canyon area that we'll do, and then we'll do 90032, and if we have time, Arroyo Seco and Mount Washington, because it is our contention that the LA Fire Department Brush Division has not had their contractors even comply with the 6 feet clearance. I've been around forest fires. 6 feet clearance is a real issue because you guys have to go in and try to stop it. So we're quite concerned about the lack of compliance by the Brush Division on re-inspections when the city contractors have cleared all the grass, yeah, and swept it out. But they don't give clearance under the brush. Some of it is 18 feet. We have good chaparral. Thank you.
Thank you. So we can adjourn.
Move to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
Adjourn.